The Peacekeeper's last mission DR. Elena Vasquez walked through the crystalline corridors of Peace Station Meridian, her footsteps echoing softly against the translucent walls. The station hung in the void between star systems, a neutral ground where the galaxy's most dangerous conflicts came to die. For 15 years, Elena had made this place her home, and in that time she had prevented 43 wars. The morning light from the station's artificial sun cast rainbow patterns through the crystal architecture, a design chosen specifically because no single species could claim it as their own. Elena paused at the observation deck, watching ships from dozens of different worlds dock at the station's massive ports. Sleek human vessels sat beside the organic living ships of the Verdani, while the geometric craft of the Kythera Collective shared space with the brutish war barges of the Valerian Empire. IT was a sight that never failed to fill Elena with wonder. When humanity first reached the stars 2 centuries ago, they found a galaxy already ancient with civilization. The older races had expected the newcomers to either submit to existing power structures or be crushed in the attempt to establish their own. Instead, humans had offered something revolutionary. The radical idea that conflicts could be resolved without bloodshed. Captain Zarachin approached Elena at the observation deck, her security uniform crisp despite the early hour. Zara had been Elena's closest friend for a decade, ever since they served together during the Andromedian border crisis. Where Elena was diplomatic and patient, Zara was direct and protective, qualities that made her an excellent head of station security. The delegates are assembling in Conference Hall 7, Zara reported, though her expression carried concern. Elena, I have to say this one more time. My security analysis shows elevated risk factors. Both the Valorians and the Kythera have been making unusual personnel changes in their delegations. Military advisors replacing diplomats, increased security details, encrypted communications that our translators can't crack. Elena turned from the observation window, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight. At 45, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had stared down galactic warlords and convinced them to choose peace over profit. Her graying hair was pulled back in a simple style that had become her trademark across the known galaxy. Beings who had never met a human could recognize Dr. Elena Vasquez from news broadcasts alone. I understand your concerns, Zara, but we've faced hostile delegations before. The Valerian Empire and the Kythera Collective have been escalating their dispute over the Tertia system for 6 months. If we don't mediate this now, we're looking at a war that could destabilize 3 sectors. The mineral wealth in those moon systems is just too valuable for either side to give up without a fight. Zara checked her datapad, scrolling through security reports. The tertius moons contain enough rare elements to power fleet movements for decades. Both sides have been moving ships into position under the guise of defensive preparations. Elena, this isn't like the territorial disputes we usually handle. This is about resources that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Elena nodded, understanding the implications. The Valerian Empire dominated through brute military force, their reptilian warriors conquering worlds through superior numbers and aggressive tactics. The Kythera Collective relied on their hive-mind intelligence to outmaneuver opponents, using advanced technology and coordinated strategies that individual-minded species struggled to counter. Both civilizations had been content to coexist as long as neither gained a significant advantage over the other. Which is exactly why we need to find a solution, Elena replied. When 2 major powers prepare for war over resources, smaller civilizations get caught in the crossfire. The human colonies in the Outer Rim, the Verdani nature worlds, the peaceful trading stations throughout the sector, they all depend on us to prevent this conflict. The 2 women walked together toward Conference Hall 7, passing through sections of the station where different atmospheric conditions accommodated various species. Elena exchanged greetings in 6 different languages with beings she had worked with over the years. A group of young Verdani students, their green skin marked with the patterns of their home forest, bowed respectfully as she passed. Elena had helped negotiate the educational exchange program that brought students from isolated worlds to study at the station. Conference Hall 7 was the largest negotiation space on the station, designed to accommodate the physical and psychological needs of multiple species simultaneously. The lighting could be adjusted for beings who saw in different spectrums. The atmosphere could be modified in real time for various respiratory requirements, and the seating arrangements could be reconfigured to respect cultural hierarchies and territorial instincts. Ambassador Crixtal of the Valerian Empire was already present when Elena arrived, his massive reptilian frame dominating one side of the conference table. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted from dark green to bronze depending on his mood, Crixtal represented everything intimidating about Valerian culture. His yellow eyes, unblinking and predatory, tracked Elena's movement as she entered the room. 3 military advisors flanked him, their ceremonial armor designed more for intimidation than protection. Council Speaker Venth of the Kythera Collective occupied the opposite side of the table, her insectoid features impossible for humans to read. The Kythera maintained constant mental connection with their collective consciousness, meaning that Venth was simultaneously speaking for herself and for the billions of minds that comprised her civilization. Her 4 arms moved in complex patterns while she communicated silently with her advisors, a display that never failed to unsettle other species. Elena took her position at the head of the table, equidistant from both delegations. This was her domain, the place where her reputation had been built through 15 years of successful mediations. She activated the translation matrix that would render her words in the native languages of all participants, then began the session that would change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Crixtal, Council Speaker Venth, thank you for coming to Meridian Station. We are here to discuss the disputed ownership of the Tertius Moon System and to find a resolution that serves the interests of both your civilizations without resorting to military action. Crixtal's scales darkened to a deeper bronze, a sign of agitation in Valerian physiology. Dr. Vasquez, the Valerian Empire appreciates human efforts at mediation, but this situation is beyond diplomatic resolution. The Tertius moons were claimed by Valerian survey teams 18 months ago. We have established mining operations and defensive installations. The Kythera intrusion into our territory is an act of war. Council Speaker Venth's compound eyes focused on Crixtal before shifting to Elena. When she spoke, her voice carried the harmonic undertones that indicated she was consulting with the collective consciousness in real time. The Kythera Collective challenges the Valerian claim. Our deep space surveys identified the Tertius system 3 years ago. Valerian presence in the system represents theft of resources rightfully belonging to our civilization. The collective has voted. We will not yield our claim. Elena had mediated disputes like this before, though none with stakes quite this high. The key was finding common ground that both sides could accept without losing face. She pulled up holographic displays showing the Tertius system, 3 moons orbiting a gas giant in the neutral zone between Valerian and Kythera space. Let's examine the facts objectively, Elena began. The Tertius system lies in unclaimed space beyond the territorial boundaries established by the Galactic Accords. Both civilizations have legitimate interests in the mineral wealth contained in these moons. Rather than viewing this as a zero-sum conflict, perhaps we can explore options for shared development. For the next 3 hours, Elena worked through various compromise proposals. She suggested dividing the moons between the 2 powers, establishing joint mining operations, creating a neutral zone administered by the Galactic Council. Each proposal met resistance from both sides, but Elena could sense gradual movement toward acceptance. This was the delicate art of mediation, finding the narrow path between competing interests that allowed both sides to claim victory. The breakthrough came when Elena proposed a stage development plan. The Valorians would take control of the largest moon, rich in heavy metals needed for their military expansion. The Kythera would gain exclusive access to the smallest moon, which contained the exotic elements their technology required. The middle moon would be developed jointly, with profits shared based on each civilization's contribution to the extraction effort. Ambassador Crixtal leaned forward, his scaled fingers drumming against the table's surface. The Valerian Empire could accept such an arrangement, provided our sovereignty over the primary moon is absolute. We will not tolerate Kithera interference in our mining operations. Council Speaker Vent's arms moved in the patterns that indicated consultation with the collective. After several minutes, she responded, "The collective finds merit in Dr. Vasquez's proposal. We agree to the territorial division with the provision that all joint operations on the middle moon proceed according to Kithera. Efficiency protocols." Elena felt the familiar satisfaction of a successful mediation. Both sides were getting what they needed most, while making concessions they could live with. She began drafting the formal agreement that would prevent a war and establish a framework for future cooperation. The document took 2 hours to complete, with each clause carefully worded to respect the cultural sensitivities of both civilizations. As Elena prepared to call for the formal signing ceremony, Ambassador Crixtal stood abruptly. His scales had shifted to a pattern Elena had never seen before, deep red mixed with black, creating an ominous coloration. The Valerian military advisors moved to flank him, their hands resting on ceremonial weapons. "Dr. Vasquez," Crixtal said, his voice carrying a tone that made Elena's instinct scream danger. "The Valerian Empire has reconsidered its position. We reject this compromise. The Tertius system belongs to us by right of conquest, and we will take it by force if necessary." Elena stood as well, maintaining her diplomatic composure despite the sudden shift in the room's atmosphere. "Ambassador, we've made significant progress toward a peaceful resolution. Surely the Valerian Empire recognizes the benefits of avoiding a costly war." Crixtal's yellow eyes fixed on Elena with predatory intensity. "The Empire recognizes only strength, Dr. Vasquez. For too long, humans have interfered in the natural order of the galaxy. You offer weakness disguised as wisdom, compromise disguised as strength. The galaxy would be better served by species that understand the value of decisive action." The ambassador reached for his ceremonial weapon, a plasma blade that ignited with a brilliant blue flame. Elena had seconds to react, but her first instinct was not to protect herself. She threw herself sideways, shielding Council Speaker Vent from the attack that she realized had been planned from the beginning. The plasma blade cut through Elena's torso with surgical precision. She collapsed to the floor of Conference Hall 7, her life bleeding away on the neutral ground where she had spent 15 years building peace. With her last breath, she whispered words that would echo across the galaxy. "Peace is not weakness. Remember that." Captain Zara Chin burst into the conference hall seconds later, alerted by the security breach. She found Elena's body and Ambassador Crixtal standing over it, the plasma blade still in his hand. The Valerian military advisors had already drawn their weapons, while Council Speaker Venth cowered behind the overturned table. "You killed her," Zara whispered, her voice carrying a mixture of grief and rage that would soon be shared by every human in the galaxy. "You killed Elena." Crixtal deactivated his weapon and returned it to his belt. "I eliminated an obstacle to Valerian expansion. This human meddling in galactic affairs ends today. Let her death serve as a message to all who would stand in our way." The assassination was recorded by the conference hall security systems and transmitted across the galaxy within hours. The footage showed Elena Vasquez, the most respected mediator in galactic history, murdered in cold blood while trying to prevent a war. The reaction was immediate and unprecedented. Human colonies throughout the galaxy received the news with stunned silence, followed by a rage that burned brighter than the stars themselves. For 2 centuries, humanity had chosen peace over war, diplomacy over conquest, cooperation over domination. They had built their reputation as mediators and peacekeepers, earning respect through wisdom rather than fear. The Valerian Empire had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They had killed the one human whose death would unite every human world, every human fleet, every human heart in a single purpose: justice for Elena Vasquez, and an end to the Valerian threat forever. That Earth's response came within 24 hours. President David Rodriguez appeared on communication screens across the galaxy. His message transmitted simultaneously to every inhabited world. His words were simple, direct, and terrifying in their calm certainty. The Valerian Empire has murdered Dr. Elena Vasquez during peaceful negotiations. We demand the immediate surrender of Ambassador Crixtal and his accomplices for trial. You have 72 hours to comply. If you refuse, you will discover why humanity has spent 2 centuries building peace instead of war. You will learn that we chose diplomacy not from weakness, but from mercy. That mercy ends now. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how the Valerian Empire would respond to humanity's ultimatum. Most alien civilizations expected the humans to make empty threats and eventually accept some form of compensation for their loss. After all, humans were peacekeepers, not warriors. Emperor Valorac's response came exactly 72 hours later, broadcast from the throne room of the Valerian homeworld. The massive reptilian ruler, adorned with the battle honors of 100 conquered worlds, laughed at humanity's demands. The Valerian Empire does not bow to the threats of inferior species. Ambassador Crixtal acted with honor in removing an obstacle to our rightful expansion. If the humans want war, they shall have it. We will teach them their place in the galactic order. The Emperor's laughter echoed across space, a sound that would soon be remembered as the last moment of Valerian confidence. Within hours of the rejection, something unprecedented began happening throughout human space. Ships that had carried cargo for decades suddenly began broadcasting military identification codes. Peaceful research stations revealed themselves as monitoring outposts. Civilian infrastructure transformed into the largest war machine the galaxy had ever seen. The sleeping giant was awakening, and its wrath would shake the very stars themselves. The sleeping giant awakens. Admiral Marcus Thompson stood in the command center beneath Geneva, studying the largest holographic display ever constructed by human hands. The three-dimensional map showed every human settlement, every trade route, every ship, and every hidden asset across 200 light-years of space. Red markers indicated Valerian positions throughout the galaxy. Blue markers showed human assets. What would have shocked every alien intelligence service was the sheer number of blue dots scattered across the display. The circular war room buzzed with activity as the most powerful humans in the galaxy coordinated humanity's response to Elena Vasquez's murder. Colonial governors participated through quantum communication links from distant worlds. Corporate executives who controlled vast merchant fleets awaited orders. Military commanders from every branch of human forces studied tactical displays that most aliens didn't know existed. Admiral Thompson had been planning for this day for 30 years. Not this exact scenario, but the inevitable moment when humanity's commitment to peace would be tested by those who mistook compassion for weakness. Elena's assassination had triggered Protocol 7, the unified command structure that would coordinate humanity's response to existential threats. Ladies and gentlemen, Thompson began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. As of 6 hours ago, all human military and civilian assets have been placed under unified command. Protocol 7 is now in effect. We are at war with the Valerian Empire. General Lisa Park, Director of Strategic Operations, activated her holographic display showing human force deployments across the galaxy. Admiral, all hidden assets have acknowledged activation orders. The transformation is proceeding faster than our most optimistic projections. Estimated time to full military readiness, 18 hours. Dr. James Wright, Chief of Military Intelligence, stood before a display showing detailed analyses of Valerian military capabilities. For 20 years, he had been studying every piece of information that human peacekeepers and diplomats had gathered about alien civilizations. His team knew Valerian battle tactics, technological capabilities, and psychological weaknesses better than the Valorians knew themselves. The Valerian Empire maintains 47 major military installations across 12 star systems, Wright reported. Their fleet strength is approximately 8,000 ships of various classes. However, their real weakness is their predictability. Valerian military doctrine is based entirely on frontal assault tactics. They consider deception and indirect approaches to be dishonorable. Admiral Thompson nodded, remembering Elena's final words about peace not being weakness. The Valorians were about to learn that humanity's peaceful nature had been a choice, not a limitation. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded what appeared to be a simple cargo vessel called the Honest Trader. For 15 years, her ship had carried medical supplies between human colonies in the Outer Rim sectors. Her manifest listed humanitarian cargo and peaceful crew members. What the manifest didn't mention was that every person aboard Mitchell's ship was a veteran of humanity's most elite military units. When Mitchell received her Protocol 7 activation codes, she felt a grim satisfaction that had been building for years. "Attention crew," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We have received activation orders. Initiate military conversion sequence. Time to show the galaxy what human merchants really carry." The transformation of the Honest Trader took exactly 43 minutes. Hidden panels slid away to reveal weapon systems that could destroy cruiser-class vessels. The cargo holds reconfigured into launch bays for fighter drones and special operations craft. The ship's modest engines revealed their true specifications, capable of speeds that would outrun most military vessels in the galaxy. Throughout human space, the same transformation was occurring on hundreds of ships. Merchant vessels became destroyers. Colony transports revealed themselves as troop carriers. Even small civilian shuttles began broadcasting military identification codes that indicated capabilities far beyond their apparent specifications. The Valerian Empire had made their strategic calculations based on humanity's visible military assets. They saw the small human defense fleets that protected colonial worlds and the modest patrol vessels that escorted merchant convoys. What they had never suspected was that humanity's real military capability was hidden in plain sight, disguised as the peaceful infrastructure of a trading civilization. Commander Alexandra Knox received her orders while docked at a seemingly innocent research station in the Centauri system. Her vessel, officially designated as a deep space exploration craft, had been mapping stellar phenomena for a decade. In reality, Knox commanded one of humanity's most advanced stealth ships, capable of operating undetected in alien space for months at a time. Crew of the Silent Wing, Knox announced to her team of specialists, "Our mapping mission is complete. Begin Phase 1 reconnaissance operations. I want the location, strength, and defensive capabilities of every Valerian installation within 6 sectors." Knox's stealth ships had been operating in alien space for years, disguised as scientific expeditions and commercial survey vessels. While other species focused on building bigger weapons and stronger armor, humanity had perfected the art of remaining invisible. Human stealth technology operated on principles that alien science had never discovered, making their ships undetectable to conventional sensors. The first sign that something had changed came when Valerian border patrols began reporting ghost contacts. Ships appeared on sensors for brief moments before vanishing completely. Communication relays went offline without explanation. Supply convoys reported being shadowed by vessels that disappeared whenever reinforcements arrived. Field Commander S.E. Qatar commanded a Valerian patrol base on the edge of their territory. His sensors detected human merchant traffic moving through the system just as they had for years. But something was different about the patterns. Ships that had always traveled alone were now moving in formation. Civilian stations were broadcasting identification codes that his computers couldn't classify. S.E. Qatar sent a priority message to Valerian High Command. Human activity patterns have changed dramatically. Recommend increased surveillance of all human space. The response came back within hours. Humans are cowards fleeing from superior Valerian might. Continue standard patrol patterns. If S.E. Qatar could have seen what was happening in human space, he would have recommended immediate withdrawal from all forward positions. On New Geneva, civilian shipyards had converted to military production overnight. Instead of building cargo haulers and passenger vessels, they were assembling destroyers and battle cruisers at 3 times their peacetime construction rate. The asteroid mining colonies throughout human space stopped shipping raw materials to alien worlds and redirected everything to military production facilities. Human industrial capacity, spread across dozens of worlds and hundreds of space stations, had become the largest war machine the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Maria Santos worked in what appeared to be an agricultural research facility on the farming world of New Iowa. Her official research focused on crop optimization and environmental adaptation. Her real work involved developing weapons systems that other species would never think to create. Santos and her team had spent years studying alien physiology and psychology, looking for non-lethal ways to neutralize hostile forces. The neural disruption field is ready for deployment, Santos reported to Admiral Thompson during a secure communication session. It won't cause permanent damage to Valerian nervous systems, but it will incapacitate their warriors for approximately 8 hours. Their own brain chemistry will convince them that they're experiencing overwhelming fear. This was the kind of psychological warfare that alien military doctrines had no defense against. While other species built weapons designed to kill, humanity had developed weapons designed to win without unnecessary casualties. The goal was not genocide, but justice for Elena Vasquez and protection for the innocent. Captain David Lee commanded the heavy cruiser Determination, one of humanity's few openly military vessels. His ship had been conducting routine patrol operations in the outer colonies when Protocol 7 was activated. Lee's crew watched in amazement as their modest patrol fleet was suddenly reinforced by hundreds of ships they had never known existed. Captain reported his tactical officer, "We're receiving approach vectors for merchant vessels throughout the sector." "Sir, these aren't merchants anymore. Their sensor signatures indicate military-grade weapons and armor. Where did they all come from?" Lee smiled grimly as he studied the tactical display. "They've always been here, Lieutenant. Hidden in plain sight, waiting for the day someone made the mistake of testing human resolve. Today is that day." The transformation wasn't limited to ships and weapons. Across human space, civilians with seemingly peaceful occupations revealed their true roles in humanity's defense network. Teachers who had been educating alien students were actually intelligence analysts studying alien culture and psychology. Doctors treating alien patients had been gathering biological data that could be used to develop species-specific medical countermeasures. Even artists and entertainers had been mapping alien emotional responses and social structures. President Rodriguez addressed the human population from his office in Geneva, speaking to every human world, station, and ship simultaneously. "My fellow humans, 6 days ago, the Valerian Empire murdered Dr. Elena Vasquez during peaceful negotiations. They rejected our demands for justice and declared war on our civilization. They have made a mistake that will echo through galactic history." The president paused, his expression reflecting the grief and determination shared by every human who had heard Elena's final words. "For 2 centuries, we have been the peacekeepers of this galaxy. We have prevented wars, mediated disputes, and protected the weak from the strong. We did this because we believed in peace, justice, and the possibility of a better future for all civilizations." Rodriguez's voice grew harder, carrying the weight of humanity's collective resolve. "The Valerian Empire has demonstrated that they understand only strength. They killed a woman whose life was dedicated to preventing exactly this moment. Elena Vasquez died trying to give them a peaceful solution to their problems. Now, they will face the consequences of choosing war over wisdom." The speech was monitored by alien intelligence services throughout the galaxy. Most species interpreted it as typical human diplomacy, empty words designed to avoid actual confrontation. Only a few observers noticed the underlying message. Humanity was not making threats or seeking negotiations. They were announcing a decision that had already been made. The first Valerian patrol to encounter transformed human forces was a squadron of heavy cruisers investigating reports of increased merchant activity in the border systems. Squadron leader Croft expected to find unarmed cargo vessels fleeing Valerian space in terror. Instead, his sensors detected a fleet of military ships that shouldn't have existed. "This is impossible," Croft reported to his superiors. We're tracking 47 human vessels with military configurations. Our intelligence reports indicated no significant human forces in this sector. Where did they come from? The response from Valerian High Command reflected their fundamental misunderstanding of human civilization. Human merchants have likely acquired defensive weapons from other species. Proceed with standard intimidation tactics. They will surrender when faced with superior Valerian might. Krotha's squadron advanced on the human fleet, confident in their numerical and technological superiority. Valerian ships were built for intimidation as much as combat, massive and brutal in appearance, designed to frighten enemies into submission. The human vessels appeared modest by comparison, sleek and efficient rather than threatening. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, Krotha's entire squadron had been captured or destroyed without inflicting a single casualty on the human forces. The engagement was recorded by long-range sensors and transmitted throughout Valerian space, where it caused panic among military commanders who had never seen their forces defeated so decisively. Captain Mitchell's honest trader led the human fleet in that first engagement, demonstrating capabilities that shattered Valerian assumptions about human military technology. Her ship moved with speed and agility that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. Her weapon systems fired with precision that suggested targeting computers more advanced than anything in the Valerian arsenal. But the most shocking aspect of the engagement was the human approach to warfare itself. Rather than destroying the Valerian ships outright, the humans used focused electromagnetic pulses to disable enemy systems. They captured Valerian crews instead of killing them. They seized intact ships that could be studied and repurposed. This is not warfare as we understand it, Croft reported from his detention cell aboard. Mitchell's ship, these humans fight without honor, using tactics that no civilized species would consider. They seek victory rather than glorious combat. Krotha's report revealed the fundamental difference between human and Valerian military philosophy. The Valorians viewed war as a test of strength and courage, with specific rules about honorable conduct and acceptable tactics. Humans viewed war as a problem to be solved as efficiently as possible with minimum casualties and maximum strategic advantage. This philosophical gap would prove decisive in the coming conflict. While Valerian commanders planned glorious battles and heroic charges, human strategists were implementing a comprehensive campaign designed to end the war quickly and permanently. They had learned from 2 centuries of peacekeeping that the best way to prevent future conflicts was to demonstrate the cost of starting them. Admiral Thompson reviewed the initial battle reports with satisfaction. Phase 1 of the human response had exceeded all expectations. Valerian forces were reeling from encounters with an enemy they had never expected to face. More importantly, neutral alien species were beginning to reconsider their assumptions about human capabilities. The Kithara Collective sent a diplomatic message to Earth within hours of the first engagement. Council Speaker Vanth, the same being who had witnessed Elena's assassination, transmitted a formal statement of support for human military operations. The collective offers assistance to human forces seeking justice for Dr. Vasquez. Her death diminished the galaxy's capacity for peace. Similar messages arrived from the Verdani nature worlds, the peaceful trading leagues, and dozens of smaller civilizations that had benefited from human mediation over the years. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species were actively supporting another species' war effort without formal alliance agreements. The reason was simple. Everyone could see that humanity was fighting for principles that would benefit the entire galaxy. Elena Vasquez had died trying to prevent a war that would have destabilized multiple sectors. Her assassination had revealed the true nature of the Valerian Empire and the threat they posed to galactic peace. As Phase 2 of the human campaign began, Admiral Thompson received a communication from Emperor Valorak himself. The massive reptilian ruler appeared on the command center's main screen, his ceremonial armor gleaming with the trophies of conquered worlds. Human Admiral, Valorak growled, his voice carrying the arrogance that had defined Valerian policy for centuries. Your species has won a minor skirmish against a patrol squadron. Do not mistake this for true victory. The Valerian Empire has been conquering worlds since before your species discovered fire. We will teach you the price of challenging your superiors. Admiral Thompson studied the alien emperor for a moment before responding. His words were calm, measured, and utterly without compromise. Emperor Valorak, you killed Dr. Elena Vasquez during peaceful negotiations. You rejected our demands for justice. You declared war on our civilization. Now you will learn why humanity chose peace for 2 centuries. We didn't build this military capability for conquest. We built it for moments exactly like this one. The communication ended with Thompson's promise echoing across Valerian space. You wanted to see human strength. Emperor, watch carefully. You're about to get an education that will last for whatever remains of your empire. The real war was about to begin. Justice and the new galactic order, the siege of the Valerian homeworld, began at dawn on the 307th day since Elena Vasquez's assassination. Fleet Admiral Catherine Ross commanded the largest military force in human history, assembled from every corner of human space and reinforced by volunteer units from allied species. The armada that surrounded the Valerian capital system represented not just human military might, but the collective will of dozens of civilizations demanding justice. Admiral Ross stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Elena Vasquez, a massive dreadnought constructed specifically for this campaign. The ship carried Elena's personal effects in a memorial chamber, along with soil from every human world and gifts from the alien species she had helped during her years as a mediator. Ross had served under Elena during the Andromedan crisis 15 years earlier, and she understood better than anyone what the galaxy had lost. The Valerian homeworld of Krexhar hung before them like a wounded predator, its orbital defenses scarred by months of systematic human assault. The planet's massive military installations, built over centuries of conquest, had been systematically neutralized by human forces that fought unlike any enemy the Valorians had ever faced. Where the Valorians expected glorious battles, they found surgical strikes that left their infrastructure intact, but their weapons useless. Emperor Valorak's voice crackled across all communication frequencies transmitted from deep within his fortress palace. Humans, you dare to threaten the home world of the Valerian Empire. Our ancestors conquered 1,000 worlds. We will never surrender to inferior species. Admiral Ross activated the communication array that would broadcast her response throughout the Valerian system and beyond. Her words would be heard by every alien civilization in the galaxy, marking a pivotal moment in galactic history. Emperor Valorak, this is Fleet Admiral Catherine Ross of the Human Defense Force. You stand accused of ordering the assassination of Dr. Elena Vasquez during peaceful negotiations. Your empire stands accused of war crimes against civilian populations and violations of the Galactic Peace Accords. We offer you one final opportunity to surrender yourself and your accomplices for trial. Refuse, and we will take you by force. The Emperor's laughter echoed across space, but it carried a hollow quality that hadn't been present in his earlier communications. The Valerian Empire does not surrender. Come and take us if you can. Ross nodded to her tactical officer. Begin the final assault. All units, remember your orders. Minimum civilian casualties, maximum strategic impact. We're here for justice, not revenge. The human assault on Krexhar demonstrated everything that made humanity unique among galactic civilizations. Instead of bombarding the planet from orbit, human forces used precision strikes that targeted only military installations. Advanced medical teams stood ready to treat Valerian civilians caught in the crossfire. Psychological warfare specialists broadcast messages explaining that humans sought only the war criminals responsible for Elena's death. Captain Sarah Mitchell led the Special Forces team that penetrated the Emperor's fortress palace. Her soldiers moved through the ancient structure like ghosts, using technology that rendered them invisible to Valerian sensors. They had studied the palace's architecture for months. planning routes that would minimize confrontation with guards who were following orders rather than making policy decisions. Remember, Mitchell told her team as they approached the throne room, Emperor Valorak and Ambassador Crixtal are wanted alive for trial. Everyone else gets a chance to surrender before we engage. The throne room of the Valerian Empire was a monument to conquest, decorated with trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. Emperor Valorak sat on his crystalline throne, surrounded by the last of his elite guard. Ambassador Crixtal, the being who had murdered Elena Vasquez, stood at the Emperor's right hand, his plasma blade drawn and ready. So, the human insects have finally crawled from their holes. Valorak growled as Mitchell's team materialized from stealth. Come then, face the might of the Valerian Empire. Mitchell stepped forward, her weapon lowered but ready. Emperor Valorak, Ambassador Crixtal, by the authority of the Galactic War Crimes Tribunal, you are under arrest for the murder of Dr. Elena Vasquez and crimes against galactic peace. Surrender now, and you will receive a fair trial. Crixtal hissed, his scales shifting to the aggressive pattern that had preceded Elena's murder. Humans, you think your technological tricks make you warriors? Face me in honorable combat. Mitchell's response was swift and precise. Her team used neural disruptors to incapacitate the guards without permanent harm, while electromagnetic pulses disabled Crixtal's weapons. Within minutes, both the Emperor and the Ambassador were in custody, alive and unharmed but completely helpless. Justice, not vengeance, Mitchell repeated as she secured the prisoners. Elena would have wanted them to face trial, not execution. The capture of the Valerian leadership marked the end of active military operations, but the real work of justice was just beginning. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy gathered on the neutral world of Nexus Prime for what would become known as the Great Trial. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy, establishing precedents that would govern interspecies relations for generations to come. President David Rodriguez opened the tribunal with words that echoed Elena's final message. We are here not to seek revenge, but to establish justice. Dr. Elena Vasquez died believing that peace was possible if civilized beings were willing to work for it. This trial will determine whether her faith was justified. The prosecution was led by Director Amanda Foster, Elena's former student and closest protege. Foster had spent months preparing the case, gathering evidence that revealed the full scope of Valerian war crimes. Her opening statement brought tears to beings across dozens of species. Elena Vasquez spent 15 years preventing wars that would have killed millions. She died trying to negotiate a peaceful solution to a resource dispute that could have been resolved without a single casualty. Ambassador Crixtal murdered her not in combat, not in self-defense, but because he could not accept that a human had something valuable to offer. The evidence presented during the trial shocked even species that considered themselves familiar with warfare. Video recordings showed Elena's assassination in horrific detail. Communication intercepts revealed that the murder had been planned in advance, part of a broader Valerian strategy to eliminate human influence in galactic affairs. Most damning of all were Crixtal's own words, recorded immediately after the killing, bragging about showing the human insects their place in the galactic order. Witness after witness testified about Elena's work as a mediator. Beings from dozens of species described how she had prevented conflicts, saved lives, and helped establish the peaceful frameworks that allowed different civilizations to coexist. The Verdani delegation presented a formal statement signed by every member of their planetary council, declaring Elena an honorary daughter of their world. Hive speaker Venth of the Kithara Collective provided the most powerful testimony. Speaking for her entire civilization, she described Elena's final moments in the conference room. The human Elena threw herself between General Crixtal's weapon and this speaker's person. Her final act was to protect one who had been merely in negotiating partner moments before. This demonstrated the fundamental difference between human and Valerian philosophy. The defense attempted to argue that Crixtal had acted within Valerian cultural norms, that assassination during negotiations was acceptable under their concepts of honor. The argument collapsed when human prosecutors presented evidence that even Valerian law prohibited murder during formal diplomatic proceedings. Emperor Valorak took the stand in his own defense, his massive frame barely fitting in the witness chair designed for multiple species. His testimony revealed the depths of his misunderstanding about human nature and galactic politics. The Valerian Empire has ruled through strength for millennia, Valorak declared. We believed humans were weak because they chose negotiation over conquest. We were wrong about their strength, but not about their interference in the natural order. The strong should rule the weak. President Rodriguez cross-examined the emperor personally, asking questions that exposed the fundamental flaw in Valerian thinking. Your Majesty, you described Dr. Vasquez as weak because she sought peaceful solutions, yet she single-handedly prevented 43 wars during her career. How many conflicts has the Valerian Empire prevented? Valorak's silence spoke louder than any words could have. The trial's most significant moment came when Admiral Thompson testified about humanity's military preparations. His revelation of Protocol 7 and the hidden defensive capabilities scattered throughout human space stunned the galactic community. We didn't build this military capacity for conquest, Thompson explained to the tribunal. We built it because we knew that someday someone would test our commitment to peace. We hoped that day would never come, but we were prepared for it when it did. The psychological impact of Thompson's testimony extended far beyond the courtroom. Every aggressive species in the galaxy suddenly understood that humanity's peaceful behavior had been a choice, not a limitation. The beings who had seemed so vulnerable were actually the most prepared civilization in known space. Dr. James Wright provided classified intelligence that revealed how thoroughly human peacekeepers had studied alien civilizations. Every diplomatic mission included intelligence officers, Wright testified. Every cultural exchange mapped psychological weaknesses. Every trade agreement revealed industrial capabilities. We gathered this information not for conquest, but for protection. The evidence showed that humanity possessed detailed knowledge about every major species in the galaxy, information that could be used to predict behavior, exploit weaknesses, and neutralize threats. The peaceful humans who had seemed so trusting had actually been the most informed observers in galactic history. After 6 weeks of testimony, the tribunal reached its verdict. Ambassador Crixtal was found guilty of murder, war crimes, and crimes against galactic peace. Emperor Valorak was convicted of conspiracy and commanding war crimes. The sentences reflected both justice and mercy. Life imprisonment on a human world where they would spend their remaining years learning about the civilization they had so badly underestimated. But the trial's most important outcome wasn't the punishment of individual criminals. It was the creation of the Vasquez Accords, a new framework for galactic law named after the murdered Peacekeeper. These laws established clear rules for diplomatic immunity, peaceful negotiation protocols, and severe penalties for those who violated them. President Rodriguez signed the accords in a ceremony broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. These laws exist because Elena Vasquez believed that peace was worth dying for, he announced. We will make sure her sacrifice creates a galaxy where such tragedies become impossible. The signing took place on a new space station, built at the exact coordinates where Elena had been murdered. The Vasquez Memorial Station became the headquarters for the reformed Galactic Peace Council, with humans taking the leading role in maintaining interstellar stability. Director Amanda Foster became the first administrator of the Memorial Station, standing in the same conference room where her mentor had died. She addressed the first graduation ceremony for the new Galactic Peacekeeping Academy, training beings from 30 different species in Elena's methods and philosophy. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, Foster told the assembled graduates. Peace is what happens when civilized beings choose to resolve their differences through wisdom rather than violence. Elena Vasquez understood this. She died for this principle. Now it's our responsibility to ensure that her sacrifice transforms the galaxy. The transformation was already visible throughout known space. Human peacekeeping forces served on every major world, welcomed now as protectors rather than merely mediators. Alien students attended human universities, studying not just human technology, but human philosophy about justice, cooperation, and the protection of the innocent. The Valerian Empire itself underwent the most dramatic change. With their emperor imprisoned and their military defeated, the remaining Valerian leadership chose cooperation over continued resistance. They established a new government based on principles of peaceful coexistence, with human advisors helping them transition from a conquest-based society to a productive member of the galactic community. Former Valerian worlds that had been ruled through fear and oppression experienced liberation for the first time in centuries. Populations that had been forced to serve as soldiers or laborers were free to pursue their own interests. Many chose to study at human educational institutions, learning about alternatives to the violent culture that had dominated their lives. The ripple effects of Elena's sacrifice extended to species that had never directly interacted with humans. The demonstration of human military capability and restraint convinced aggressive civilizations throughout the galaxy to reconsider their expansionist policies. Why risk war with a species that could defeat the mighty Valerian Empire while showing mercy to defeated enemies? 1 year after the trial, President Rodriguez returned to Vasquez Memorial Station for the dedication of Elena's permanent monument. The memorial was simple, a statue of Elena in her mediator's robes, with her final words carved into the base in every written language known to galactic civilization. Peace is not weakness. Remember that. Rodriguez's dedication speech became one of the most quoted addresses in galactic history. Elena Vasquez believed that the strongest species wasn't the one with the biggest weapons or the most conquests. She believed it was the one willing to fight not for dominance, but for the right of others to live in peace. Today, because of her sacrifice, that principle governs our galaxy. The ceremony concluded with the reading of Elena's personal journal, discovered in her quarters after her death. Her final entry, written the night before her assassination, revealed the depth of her commitment to peace. Tomorrow's negotiation will be challenging, but I believe both sides genuinely want to avoid war. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes patient work and genuine care for others can prevent terrible violence. I pray I'm right. Elena had been wrong about preventing that particular war, but her death had prevented countless others. The galaxy she had died trying to protect had become the galaxy she had always envisioned. A place where different species could coexist, where conflicts were resolved through wisdom rather than force, and where the strong chose to protect the weak rather than exploit them. The human species had learned a painful lesson about the cost of peace, but they had also taught the galaxy an even more important lesson about the consequences of breaking it. Elena Vasquez's sacrifice had created a new galactic order, one where her vision of universal peace was not just an ideal, but a reality protected by the most powerful military force in known space. To end the end, her murder had accomplished exactly what she had worked for throughout her life. A galaxy where peace was possible because those with the strength to enforce it had the wisdom to choose it. The humans who had spent 2 centuries building peace instead of war had proven that mercy was not weakness, that diplomacy was not surrender, and that sometimes the greatest victory came not from defeating enemies, but from transforming them into allies. Elena Vasquez was gone, but her legacy lived on in every peaceful negotiation, every prevented war, and every species that chose cooperation over conquest. The galaxy remembered her final words and the civilization that had honored them with both justice and mercy. Peace was not weakness, and the stars themselves bore witness to that truth.